This is the Big Fish Cares Podcast. Big Fish Cares Podcast. And here's your host, Benny Fisher.
Today's guest is Sadler Priest. He's a real estate agent, and I've been friends with him on Facebook. I don't think we've ever met in person, have we, Sadler?
I don't think we have. It was kind of funny. I was thinking about it the other day as well. It feels like I've known you, and I've kind of seen your evolution over maybe four years or something now. At least we've been friends on Facebook 3 or 4 years. So
yeah, it's
long past.
It's definitely interesting nowadays in this online world where like you have. Sometimes you feel like your Facebook friends are better friends than your friends in real life, right?
Yeah. I'll meet people and like, hey, how you been? And like, I've never met you in person, or even it happens all the time. I feel like I've known somebody, but I've never actually seen them. So
I saw a post that you made. I don't know. This has been a few months ago, and I think it's what prompted me to ask you to come on the podcast because this podcast we share everybody's kind of story, right? Their origins and like how they've used their childhood and their experiences in life to kind of shape who they are today. Share with me a little bit about that childhood story, man, because it was pretty traumatic for you.
Yeah. So, it was kind of an interesting time in my life. We lived out in 8 acres in the middle of nowhere, like really isolated, but we were in Olympic Peninsula, right? Beautiful, beautiful country. I've lived all over the country, beautiful areas. Now I'm in Butler, Pennsylvania, but this was beautiful rainforest type area. And I was 12 years old, and we were up hiking in the woods and kind of looking for a place to swim, even though the water was probably too cold. We were just kids, 12, 13, 14. 2 of the kids were actually were just staying there with their grandparents. And anyways, one of the daughters ended up falling, slipping a 100-foot cliff. And, to get to her, it was crazy. I ended up having to like jump off and grab onto a tree, literally like off a cliff, get onto the tree and use that as a ladder. And then fell into the river and everything else. And the other people had to go back miles back to go back to my house to get my mom, who had to go get search and rescue. And they changed their entire operation over this system because I was down in there for hours just kind of screaming and yelling. And there was a point I ended up having to do CPR on her. And, I was 12 years old, and it's just like it was still traumatic. I still think about it. But the biggest thing, they got her to the hospital, and she ended up passing. And I think the biggest thing for me was that even after all this time, it's just I've always come back to that point. I'm always trying to beat a failure. I've never been good enough because this person unfortunately passed, and I felt like I couldn't do anything about it, And then during that time in my household, there was a lot of it wasn't all bad. There was definitely some abuse going on in my life, and so I didn't really care for my mom. I was upset with my mom during that period. So it was a lot of recovery on my own during that period where I internalized a lot of it. And it just, even there was awards given and everything like that. And I didn't want them. I just didn't feel good about it. It's just one of those things that took me a long time to actually even share it. It was a private part of my life because I didn't really want people to know about it. I was ashamed of it, to be honest, even though I had accolade after accolade. But
what state was this in?
I was in Washington State, small town.
Wow.
So we were in the middle of nowhere. So already we were kind of like alone, I felt like. And then there was some tough times going on in my life with my father-in-law, stepdad. And then we shortly after then ended up moving off to New Mexico. And then I was in New Mexico for a while. That was really fun.
So you kind of always bounced around, right? You never stayed anywhere that long, right?
Yeah, it was like we were a military family. No, I was born in Dallas, Texas there, and my dad wasn't around very long, one of those classic daddy issue cases. And then my stepdad was around, and, it wasn't all bad, like I said, but it definitely wasn't all good. And, I moved down to Texas for one point, and I went to 3 high schools my freshman year of high school. That's one thing I was always like, by the time you go to your 3rd one, you're like, what do you do?
How long did you live in Washington at this place, like where, this incident happened?
I was there from 4th grade till I was a freshman in high school, actually, and I was 12 years old when this happened. One of the things...
So it was like right in the middle. It was like right in the middle, huh? Kind of.
Yeah, and even then, we really just didn't talk about it a lot after that. And there's a cross and everything up there, probably still. But the one thing that took this sister that was involved in this, it was kind of sad because it shook her whole family. And I found out we lost touch. and we've gained contact over like the last 10 years or something. And I found out it really kind of like destroyed their whole family, where she, obviously got to be tough on a family to lose a daughter, especially when they're out visiting, grandparents or whatever. So that took me a long time to get over that. But and the funny thing is, she's a realtor as well. So found out, yeah.
Small world.
Yeah.
Right? Where were they from? Where were they visiting from?
Just the other side of the canal over towards Seattle area.
Oh,
close
okay.
areas.
So it was just kind of like, it's kind of like us going to Deep Creek or something.
They were there for the
like,
summer. Yeah, it was over on the canal where people go shrimping and crabbing and everything like that. So.
And so I'm assuming you're a wild and crazy young boy, obviously out adventurous, right? When you had to go into action, like when this happened, like, do you even remember thinking about like, hey, should I try to go down there? Like,
no,
was it just instinct to just go?
Yeah, it was all in. It seems like the worst things are, the better I perform, if that makes sense. I don't know why. It's always been like that.
Oh, it makes sense to me
life.
too. Like when we got our backs up again in the corner, it's like we can go forward like a lot easier.
Oh, I love it. Yeah, it was. I pretty much was going. I saw the cliff. There's no way to go, and basically I saw a tree and jumped, and then I was gone. I don't know. The one comical thing out of all this was the fire chief made it down where I did. It took them hours to finally get down to where I was at. I was rappelling gear and everything. And then they got down to where I was at, and then the fire chief couldn't swim, and I had to swim up this. I didn't want to. I didn't mean to, but slipped and came falling down this ravine into this creek. And that water was so cold. We couldn't have swam in there if we wanted to. It took my breath away. I couldn't even breathe. The water was so cold, and I just remember fighting, finally getting out of the creek. And then finding her, and her glasses were smashed. I still remember seeing her glasses smashed and everything else. So she never gained consciousness again while I was there. I pulled her foot out of the water. I took my shirt off and everything. I was soaked, and tried putting her over. I don't know if that did anything for shock or anything, but then I had to, like I said, I kept checking her her pulse. And basically at one point I saw my mom poke her head over the top. And, I was just screaming and crying. What do you do at that point? I was 12 years old, and it's just like this.
I can't even imagine that. Like, I have an 8-year-old boy right now. I mean, you can't plan for this kind of stuff. I mean, like, it's just like, wow. Like, were you worried about your life at all? Like, after, like, when you, were fighting that current and stuff like that and the cold water? Like, were you, how scared were you just for your own self?
It's one of those sink or swim things. Like, I knew I had to swim or I was going to die, right? or something bad was going to happen. Like, you have to do this. And so, it was a test, I guess. I made it out. And, but anyways, when the fire department guy got there, he couldn't swim. So didn't know how to swim. So he had to go back up and way back around and then come back down. So it took them almost 4 or 5 hours to finally get down to us with a gurney. And then, they had to do CPR a bunch more times on the way out. And then they medevaced her out. She passed away at the hospital. So, I mean, after that was kind of a blur, and I feel like I was pretty numb to a lot of things after that. So, but.
And then again, the relationship at home doesn't seem like it was real good.
No.
Can you shed any light on that? Like, what was that like? Because I mean, then you didn't probably get any good. Communication was probably poor, right?
Yeah, being young and not really understanding what's going on in your life, I really blame my mother for a lot of the stuff that was happening, and like, it was your fault that we're in this relationship with this guy, and so there was a lot of isolation in that period, and my dad wasn't around or anything like that. So I spent a lot of times in the woods, which there's all these things I feel have been like blessings now looking back, because the time I spent in like the Olympic National Forest as a child was incredible, and especially not having a care in the world as a kid, spending your summers out there. I mean, obviously you need to have a care because people do lose their lives, but it was just beautiful, being out there. So.
Yeah, so like where most kids run and get in trouble or go do other things, you just ran to the woods and kind of just found your peace and serenity there, maybe because all the chaos that was going on at home, right?
Right. Yep.
Are you the oldest?
I am, yeah, and I have two half brothers, my mom and then my stepfather, Aubrey and Asa. They're down in Dallas area, and then my dad actually has another son and another daughter in Chicago that I don't even know. They were kind of older by the time I even knew they were around, and it's just kind of been a strained relationship, I guess. So
Have you so like I can kind of imagine, right? Because like I feel like I have a stepdad, and he's actually a really good guy. I was blessed with like he's an amazing human being. But I can imagine what it would be like if he wasn't, right? And if it was like a bad situation, and then my mom was always, because I've heard other stories, right, of like mom's not always picking the right guys, right? For a whole host of different reasons, right? We can analyze that all day, but as a little boy, I mean, you were probably just one of those kids that were like, wanting to like try to like, fix everything or like stand up. You probably got feisty, right? And you're probably a little.
Yeah.
Is that a good characterization maybe of like, what you were trying to, who you were trying to become and like how you were trying to figure it out?
Somewhat. And again, if you're in a toxic relationship like that, sometimes you're a little jerk instigator, right, or something.
Yeah, right. Yeah, because you're trying to get attention in different ways, right? Because it's probably like it probably feels weird. Your mom's probably like she's trying to put out fires with the new relationship. She's probably trying to survive, right? I'm assuming, right? It's not like
right.
What was the financial situation? Like, would you guys consider yourself low?
We were
middle class.
Middle class. He was a firefighter. And that was another thing. We lived out, backed up to the national forest on 8 acres. So, there wasn't really anybody around. It's the middle of nowhere. So, but I mean, I remember still one night, he was downstairs crying after an episode with my mother, crying to her about something. And he was talking about his father and all the trauma that he'd experienced as his child, or when he was a child. And he was adopted and everything as well. So all this came out, and just this horrible cycle. And you kind of feel for him at the end of the day, but at the same time, being as you grow through that, you kind of understand and forgive and, you move on with your life, right?
Yeah, it's much easier once you've had some time to like really kind of digest that and understand like, first of all, hey, why is mom like that? Well, I'm sure it came from something the way she was raised and the way that her decision-making skills were. And the same thing with stepdad and even your real dad, right? Like
Absolutely.
Everyone's got a past and everyone's got a childhood that affects them. And here's you, 12 years old. This incident happens with a girl you pretty much probably just met, right? I mean,
yeah, we'd only known each other just a week or something from that summer she was up there.
Yeah, so that happens. You go into like, like Superman mode, and then after it's over, it's probably like, what the heck just happened? I don't think people are equipped to even talk to people about this kind of thing because, like, first of all, our parents aren't probably the most educated in, like, mental health and, like, all that stuff because if they were, they wouldn't be having some of the issues that they have.
Yeah.
So did you talk to anybody at school? Was there guidance counselors? Was there anybody or was it just like, hey, let's just go to, did you even go to the funeral?
Went to the funeral, and it was just real awkward. I barely remember the funeral, it was a long time ago, but I barely remember that. I don't even remember really crying after the event. It was just a lot of internalizing. Just because what did you have? I just didn't have anybody really at that point. So,
yeah. And like nobody at school, like they, like nowadays, you'd be in the guidance counselor, you'd be like down there, they'd be asking, they'd be talking to you like once a week, twice a week, making sure you're okay.
There was like 11 kids in our 8th grade or 7th grade. We were combined classes. It was such a small thing.
Oh, wow. So like small little like kind of country school thing. Wow. So what kind of effects do you think, like, do you think that had more of an effect on your childhood? Do you think growing up in maybe a toxic family environment had more of an effect on your childhood? Which one do you think played a bigger role?
That's a tough question, right? And sometimes I want to feel like it comes back to like daddy issues, like I hate saying like the childhood stuff, but like a dad I was abandoned as a child, from my dad, and he was around a lot, but he was kind of a narcissist sociopath where like he was on, parole at one point, and like even the parole officer had told my mom he's a sociopath, the only person I've ever met that like it's just lies, complete lies, doesn't know what's going on. So that's been tough, and I didn't really know what was true or not growing up whenever he did pop in for a month or two, and it was just kind of a lot of crap. But it's he passed, and I felt bad because he never got past that, where he always was like, narcissists are alone; they're just alone, and that's how they end up a lot of times, is alone. So,
how long ago did he pass away? How old were you?
Just about 2 years ago.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So that was pretty. And at that point, like, he had never came to the awareness that, he even struggled with this. He even had the issues. He's probably just just doing the same old thing, right?
And he was a bad alcoholic too, and everything else. So, I kind of had to, when I was going through trying to get sober myself, is that I had to kind of let him go and say, you're missing out on some really great things that are happening in my life and your grandkids and stuff, but I can't have you around them like you are right now. So, and he apparently, bless his heart, I heard that he was like showing, hey, my son wrote me a note. He was all happy about it, but it was one just be like, tell it, oh, get your shit together. I can't be around you. I'm trying to get my own life together here, and it's just crazy, but it is what it is, and you feel sorry for him at this point. I'm not mad anymore, really, at anybody in my life. You feel, they good. What is it? Tony Robbins said one time, if you're going to blame everybody for all their problems, like if I'm going to blame him for all his problems, I have to blame him for all the good things he did instill in my life. And he did instill a lot of good things. My gift of gab, because he was this narcissist talker, he was good. He definitely had some good points with him. He was a salesman, that kind of stuff. And I definitely got some great things from him. So that always, when I heard that from Tony, I was like, it's really good, actually, because I blame him for, I'm an alcoholic. I got all these problems. But at the same time, I have to accept all the great things that and it was like, it was nice, accepting that.
Well, true growth and transformation comes from being aware of who you are, how you became who you are through the bad and the good, right? I think once you hit that pivotal point in your life where you realize, when it clicks and you're like, oh, the reason I am so good and I'm trying to be such a great father and I'm trying to be such a great, role model and try to do things the right way is because, I saw all these things that were messed up, right? So far the other way that I'm going to try to go out and create that much good as much as I saw bad, right? And then some of your actual strengths, your genetics come into play, right? Like you talked about, being in sales and being able to be talkative and things like that. And you can use that for good. Just like your dad might have been using that for bad, you have used that skill for good, right? And there's a fine line between, manipulation and persuasion. Yeah. It really is. I know that very well. So I feel like me and you kind of have similar stories a little bit, and similar personalities.
We'd be checking in a hotel, and he'd be like, "Shh," he'd be like, "Yeah, I'm a pilot. I'm just checking in for the night, laying over." And I'm like, "What are you talking about?" You'd just be like telling people in a hotel, just get a discount or some crap, or feel like he was somebody. And I'm like,
yeah, so you grew up with this weird, there was no good leadership in your life.
Not at all.
And then you got probably confused because you're probably like, what's real? What's the truth? And then, most kids, and again, maybe it was even you, would start to kind of maybe mimic some of that and maybe do some of it because you're like, oh, maybe that's the way we got to be. And then, did you ever, when did you ever figure out, what was the right way to do things and the wrong way to do things? Was there ever an age that, everything kind of,
Too late, man. Too late, right? No, it's still working on. It's still a work in process. But I'll tell you, in my 20s, I was pretty selfish because I got to the point, I don't need anybody, and it's all about me. A lot of partying and all that kind of stuff in your 20s. I met my wife in my 20s, and she somehow stuck with me. I was joking. Man, I don't know why, but she stuck with me there for a good while.
She's probably a saint.
Oh yeah, she helped me out quite a bit in my life, that's for sure. So, but she's been right there with me, and yeah, she was there for what too many problems, right? So, anyways, that was my 20s, and then now in my 30s, I feel like things are starting to. I just hit my 4 years not drinking, and I hate saying 36 years old is when I finally figured it out, but it might have been because I'm finding that giving these things away, like money, when I quit drinking, money just, and my wife hates me hearing saying this, but money is not as important as it used to be to me. It's just an item. It's just a thing. And, it's really like the experiences you can give somebody, like just giving somebody hope or making feel good about each other. One of my ultimate goals is to give freely. Right. And, how cool is it that you, somebody down on their luck and having a tour, if you could give them a new car or something, how much would that improve their life? How would that make them feel? And that's what makes me, I can't do that right now, but that makes me feel good. That would be nice. All my I have a few apartments right now, and all my tenants are all people that are friends of mine that I'm, helping out in one way or the other, but they're friends as well. So I'm trying to help.
That's cool.
Help move up.
Yeah, no, and I think that probably comes, if we dig deep, right, comes from nobody helping you. So like now you're trying to like really make up for all the times that you got screwed over by helping as many people as you can.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, I'm the same way, brother. Like, so like I am like, I feel like, you know, they say, "Oh, Benny, you're so generous." I'm like, yeah, it's because I feel like I got like crapped on my whole life. So like, I'm just here to like figure out how to pay it forward, do good. And because that's what created this, you know, I call it the good monster now, you know, like this machine of like greatness is, you know, coming from like a place of not so great. And, you know, it might have been, you know, it's these polar opposite stories, right, that we're telling. You know, my story, your story. It's like we go from like this low points, right, with like lots of like, you know, the world beating us up. And then we start coming out of it, and then we start learning about ourselves, and we start learning about others. And then we're able to like, because I think that, you know, you have this gift of being able to, you know, you got to be intelligent because you're starting to figure out like why things work the way they do. And then you're making conscious level choices that like not then do them.
Right.
Where before, like we just didn't know any better. We just kept on. Cause I mean, in my 20s, I was the same thing. I mean, it was almost like the same exact story, like partying, getting messed up with the wrong people, doing a bunch of stupid stuff, you know, hitting rock bottom before I woke up. Right. And so it's so interesting.
Money didn't matter then, but in a wrong way, right? It was just.
Yeah, well, we just used money for ourselves, right? And we used it to kind of like, you know, it was more kind of like what you talked about your dad. Like could it be more in like a narcissistic and selfish way, right? Where then we realized it doesn't make us happy.
Right.
But we thought growing up our whole life that money would make us happy because everybody complained about not having enough. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Right.
And so when we get out to do it on our own, we're like, oh, we're going to show them, right? We're just going to go make money because that's one thing they always talked about not having.
Yeah.
And then we do that, and we do it the wrong way for selfish reasons, and then we realize that doesn't actually make us happy until we figure out like this transformational shift of where my identity is not going to be tied to how much money I make or how successful I am in business or how good I am at my job or, you know, it's going to be like I'm going to be happy with me. You know, we can't even tie our identity to our family. Like if we just wait for our wife or our partner to be happy, and then when we're happy, like that's going to be an up and down roller coaster, right? I mean, like we know how that goes.
Right.
And same thing with the kids. Like what happens if something bad happens to the kids? Like are we going to all of a sudden feel bad for ourselves or something good happens? Like we cannot go too up and down based on everybody else is what I've kind of come to.
It's a delicate balance too. I mean, I'm on a couple boards here. I'm on a Robinson board, which is board for homeless female veterans here in Butler, actually. Just kind of gives them housing and transition for kids and females. It's, you know, another thing. Like it's that experience thing is what I've been really big on. People with sales too. People buy experiences, not things, and that's basically where the money's about. Is to provide experiences to those people, which in turn provides the experience that I'm looking for, right? For helping and such. So it's a tool. It's an amazing tool, right? You can do a lot with it. So.
When did you like at what point in your life, like, you know, after you met your wife, because it sounds like you were still being a knucklehead for a little while even after you met your wife. Yeah. So like when was that did you ever have like a straight down like just like super low moment that like made you get your act together and like turn everything around?
Yeah, a few years back actually. I'll just tell you, I rolled another car, man, and it'd be an alcoholic, you know. I just got to get real honest with that, and I thought it was going to be the end of me. We worked through it, and I basically said, I was into the point, I don't know, with alcoholics, when you get to that point and there's one of two options, and it's like you're going to get better or you are basically just going to leave it all behind. I mean, like it was to the point where I needed to get out of my house, go rent an apartment, and probably just drink myself to death, if not something happened sooner to expedite my death process, if you know what I mean. I'll be honest. I mean, I was to that point. It was depression, the whole thing. And then, or it's, hey, let's try this. And it's difficult, man. It's hard because you had been living in that, as an alcoholic, you want that fast, quick. So like you want to be rich. I'd have no money, but of course you go to the bar and you get a drink or two, and yeah, you're buying everybody drinks. You know, you're fucking loaded. Yeah.
Credit cards working somehow.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah. You have no money, but all of a sudden you're like, it like fixes all the. You're pissed off, have you drinks? You know, whatever. It just fixes all the problems. So all of a sudden you have to spend days in your problems and moments in your problems, and you have to feel that hurt and that those things. You just got to feel them and be in them, and you can't just like gloss over them anymore. And it basically, I got to that point, and I started living for my family, myself. I started loving giving these people these, like I said, these experiences and making people's lives better, which helps me. And then with the business, it'd be hard for me to be a recovering anything and not be an entrepreneur, to sit at a desk or anything for 40 hours a week. It just could not happen. I have to be something where I can improve my life on a constant basis. I have to work on myself or something on a constant basis. So, that's an
interesting. I like that because I look at myself the same way. I struggle with drugs for a long time, and I would say alcohol led me to do the drugs. I never thought of myself as like a terrible alcoholic, but I mean, I guess everybody's got their own thing. But I would make bad choices after I was drinking. And then again, take the pain away, get the escape, right? Of trying to keep the family life going, the work life going. And when it's hard, when everything gets hard, sometimes it felt better just to do that, but then it actually felt worse, right? Because then you're trying to then the next day is awful, and then you have to hear about it, and it's it's just a never-ending loop. When did you take your first drink?
My first drink I didn't even like. It was that when we lived in it might have been after that point. I still remember there in Brennan, Washington, at that house. I didn't like the beer. I took a few sips and threw it out. When we lived in New Mexico, actually, I was...
beer doesn't actually taste good. I mean, not the beer that we're drinking when we're kids.
No.
I mean, there's no way that ever tastes good to anybody.
No. I worked at a local grocery store, actually, and I had the hookup. I was selling alcohol in high school and stuff. I was just like a fucking idiot. I was just looking for because my stepdad and my mom finally divorced when I was a junior or sophomore in high school, so it's just a free-for-all after that, for a while. So... So I had access to it then pretty heavily. I got suspended from high school with booze and everything else.
And you already known that your real dad was an alcoholic, right? That was a thing, right? What about your stepdad? Did he drink a lot?
No, not at all. He just had, his shit. He was a firefighter, muscled up and all that stuff.
Yeah, probably rage issues, right? He had daddy issues, right?
Listen, chemical imbalance, I think.
Everybody's got their stuff, right? Everybody handles their things different ways, that's for sure. And then so you rolled a car. I'm sure that was embarrassing to have to come home and tell the wife, right?
Oh, man, she left me in jail all weekend. So, it's one of those things. 3 days in jail. It was great.
And I'm sure this wasn't her first rodeo with you being a knucklehead, right?
No. I've been in jail a few different times. And that was my younger life. And again, it was all none of it was it was just alcohol, fucking you're a drunk idiot related.
What did it feel like every time that you were in at one of those low points? Did it feel like a low point? When the jail? Or did you think oh man, here I go again. I can't wait to get out to do it again. It'll
never happen again. It'll never happen again. It's and I always loved that, in the corner. I was in a corner again and I could work myself out of it. Oh, I got all this stuff. I got everything going. But I heard something in one of my rooms that I go to, and they're the most dangerous point in an alcoholic's thing is when the bleeding stops. When everything's good to go and everything's great and your life's all mended and your wife loves you again and your money's flush, that is the hardest time for an alcoholic because why not? I can stop. Everything's cool. I can stop. When the bleeding stops. Because when you're in panic mode and the parole officer's checking you, or probation officer, I never had a probation officer, it's easy. It's easy.
Yeah, because you got rules and checklists and things you got to do. It's almost like a game, right? I got to check all the dots, check everything off.
Yeah.
And then when no one's watching, everybody thinks it's okay. Whoa, you got to watch out for Sadler. You got to watch out for Benny.
I was just, we
got to keep checks and balances.
Well, and I know it's just I'm going to have one beer, and then it turns into, rolling a car kind of shit. So now it's just I can't. And like you said, it changes your mind. It changes what your thought process is. So if I say I'm only going to have one beer for that night, then I have one beer. The problem is it's changed my mind, and I can say, I'm going to have that second or third and fifth. And
so it's been 4 years, and you've been sober. And
I haven't drank. I do the medicinal situation, but I was sober for a good while, and then it's just I have anxiety. I'm on medication and everything too. It's just,
dude. It's all right.
It's part of who I am.
Everybody's definitions of sobriety is different. I think that if you're really trying to stay away from the booze, and that's like the biggest thing, you know, like, and you're able to do that, I think that's awesome. Did you ever go to like, I interviewed a guy on here the other day, and you know, he was big in the recovery groups, like the AA and stuff.
Yep.
Like, how did you actually beat the alcohol addiction?
You can't beat it. So I'll always.
No, I know you can't beat it. All right. So I shouldn't say it like that. You're right. So how did you transition, I guess, into this new life?
I learned, again, what is the big word for January of 2023? Mindset, right? It comes down to what the mindset to getting amazing tools to like work with, you know, and obviously time. At first, it took time just being around things and going to the rooms, and then you take, and I looked around it. And a lot of people I don't like a lot of the stuff people are hearing. And I always said, take the things that you need from that and leave all the other crap you don't want to hear. There's a lot of crap there you don't want to hear, but just take the little nuggets you want to hear. And I heard some really good things that they said, play the tape whenever you think about this one beer, immediately go tomorrow hungover at 9 a.m. and you're like feeling like puking and your wife's yelling at you. They're like, is that even worth it at this point? Go to bed, or what,
What do you do instead, though? Because I feel like for me, like I struggle sometimes thinking like, they say like there's all these other healthy options, like go work out, go run, go box, go,
yeah,
and again, like those all sound great sometimes, but it's like,
I lead you in.
Like knock and talk, baby. Yeah, call power dial.
Yeah. I mean, it's amazing with real estate and stuff. There's just so many avenues. Let me go do some media. Let me go do this. I have 11 acres in Butler, so I have a whole farm. I can go out and burn stuff. I do that.
There you go. So you get to be that little kid again.
Yeah. So I'm back in the woods, and actually, that's when I was getting sober, I was sitting out in the woods a lot, just quiet, trying to be quiet and just meditate out in the woods a lot. So I was kind of back to nature when I was doing that, and I still accredit that a lot to what I do with my sobriety is a lot of nature involvement. So just serenity and thankfulness, being thankful.
Well, that's one thing I think that you found like kind of on accident, right? As a kid, now it's like the thing to do, right? Hey, go out in the woods and hang out and meditate and like gratitude, right? You found that just because your environment put you there, right? Like you were running from the house and here's these woods. And so like you were able to like kind of figure that out a little bit. But as we talk about, some of the struggles that you've had as a child and even as a young adult, like was there anybody ever in your life that you really looked up to and like that you were like, wow, I want to be more like them instead of like, being like my parents?
It's funny. We talk about this all the time where I never really had a big role model. And it's just a blank spot in my life where probably I would have got.
But completely blank. There was nobody even like that you thought about, anybody that you interacted with, like brushed with, not necessarily talked to all the time.
I had many miniature people. Like there was a manager at the ski shop that was really good to me, took care of me. It was nice gentleman, or whatever you want to call it. He was good.
Yeah.
To be just different employers through my work.
You'd find the good ones, right? They're different.
Well, it'd always be like the superstar place I went to, so they'd be like this guy's great, and so that was probably part of my work ethic there, too. And my stepdad, he had put a great work ethic into me. I spent a lot of years splitting wood and stacking wood, and a great work ethic from him, though.
How old are your kids?
9, 6, and 3, man. Keep me busy. All girls.
So, the 9 and 6-year-old, I mean, you had them like back when you were still, being a knucklehead. Tell me how that made you feel. Having, it's one thing to let your wife down. I feel like it's a whole nother thing when you feel like you're letting your kids down, right? Like, I don't know why it's different. It just feels different.
Yeah. Thankful. Harper kind of remembers me drinking. Hazen really doesn't, but it was getting to the point like Heidi would leave and come back. I'd be like blacked out at home with the kids still. And, it's just an alcoholic fucking, I'm just going to have a beer. And then all of a sudden I'm blacked out. The girls weren't like playing in the stove or anything. They usually like laying in bed or, watching TV or something.
They had each other to play with for the most part.
I mean, I wasn't like just dead on the floor or nothing, but I mean, it wasn't safe probably. So, but yeah, so I'm happy that happened. And then Hattie's never seen me drink. So, she's the craziest one out of all of them. So.
I think she might turn out to be like you one day,
yeah,
huh? What are you going to do? How are you going to use your story and then talk to your kids, right? Because your kids are, your 9-year-old's at that point where, like, especially a girl, probably a little bit more mature than a 9-year-old boy, right? I'm thinking. And, like, she's probably seeing things on the internet anyway that are kind of messed up. Like, how are we going to use our stories to help parent these kids into the next generation?
Just to be tolerant and accepting is about all that I can really put on that, because I try and think about my parents getting mad at me for, like, watching The Simpsons, and maybe it's me doing the same thing about their YouTube or just BS, that's, I remember being like, why is this so I'm trying to be accepting, I guess, now that I'm 40 years old, of a kid watching YouTube, because maybe it's the new thing where they're going to learn something on, this is like how things are done now, and it's evolution, right? I don't know. So
like, why did your mom and dad not want you to watch The Simpsons? Any reason?
Probably cussing it. You know how Simpsons are. When they came out in the 90s.
Yeah, no, I know, but I also didn't think. I mean, it doesn't sound like your parents were living the most perfect life either. So, like, that's why I'm trying to decide. Like, how do they decide? How do they decide that The Simpsons were bad?
Well, yeah, depends who you were asking, right? I think my stepdad thought all TV was bad, to be honest with you, but yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he was bad about the TV. So, it was laziness, watching TV.
Yeah, get out and work, man. Yeah, get out and work.
Yeah,
right? Go out and chop some logs and go put out fires, right? Like,
it was good. I mean, it's one of those things I still remember it as a kid. I hated it then, but looking back of it, it was just like, it was good. Yeah. So, and then back to the kids there. They've been, they keep me busy. I'm glad that they're here. And, it's like one of those things. I'm very blessed with my life right now. And, I'm happy that where I am right now with them.
Do you think God is gave you all daughters and a wife to help maybe have you look at like things a little differently with a different perspective and like try to tame the Sadler Priest tame him down a little bit?
We were talking about this too. It's weird because I feel like all men have left or abandoned me. So not me. We were talking about Heidi, therapist or whatever. Something said men like abandoned me, and I've always whenever I talk to a lot of girls in my life, and it's not like weird. I feel like I'm safer to women. I have a lot of friends that are all girls, and so now I have these girls that are all kids too, and I'm like, oh, it's great. I love them. So yeah, I think it's exactly fits who I am to a T. So it's perfect.
So tell me a little bit about like that relationship with your wife and like the ups and downs and how you guys have been able to navigate those challenges. I mean, it's hard enough when you're not doing all the knucklehead stuff, right? Like, I mean, I'll be honest, it's hard either way. So like, how have you, cause you guys have been together for what, 13, 14 years? I don't know.
Yeah. We've been married now, 12 years, 2010 years. We got married. But we've been together 16, maybe. Somewhere in there. Yeah,
so tell us some secrets to relationships and how like you've been able to manage this relationship and give us some insight there.
Yeah, I find your best friend, right? The one you like spending time with. We hang out quite a bit, and it's not really. It's like a friend relationship. Not to be weird, if that makes sense. Than a.
Oh yeah,
that's
like you'd rather hang out with her than anybody else.
A lot of times, yeah. It's
a lot of times, right? Most of the time, until she's making you mad, then you want to find a buddy,
right?
That's understandable, right? Or maybe just even hang out with the daughters and tell the wife she can stay at home, right?
Yeah, a lot of times I do. I mean, it's and she's my real estate partner too, right? So to go that far, let's see, any secrets that I can tell you here that we have. They used to say to Grandma, don't go to bed mad. Oh, we've gone to bed mad all the time. One of those things. I think time cures all ills. I mean, we'll get mad for a couple days at a time, and then it comes back, and you're fine again.
Couple days.
All right. I mean, we're still talking, but I mean, it's we're just still kind of like
still got the chip on your shoulder. You can still feel the energy, right? Like the energy's still off, right? You can feel it. Like at the tension, you can cut it with a knife, right?
You just gonna leave like crap here. That's funny. It's funny. We don't hold anything back. I mean, we say things knowing that we're loving and joking about things. So but.
Do you think the kids how do you think the kids react to that? Like how do you deal with those conflicts that two adults have, and then the kids are always watching, right? I'm sure you saw your mom and stepdad freaking go bananas. I mean, right?
It's real life, man. It's real life. I mean, we don't ever have any really bad blowouts. Like we we don't have blowouts like that. So it's, I mean, the kids probably get yelled at more than me and my wife yell at each other. The kids probably get more yelled at than maybe us.
Yeah.
So it's just.
Do you think you're tough on your kids, or do you feel like you're easy on them?
It depends. Depends what day of the week it is.
Like overall.
I'm definitely easy on them. There's crap everywhere.
Is that because like you felt like you took on so much as a kid that you're like, oh, I don't want to put all that pressure on?
No, it's just because I kind of prioritize a lot of my life, and they're getting along fine. Because it's going to take a lot more effort to get them where I need them to be. If you're talking about discipline, it's going to take a lot more of my effort to get them, and I think we're good with my effort and where they're at. I'm okay.
Most entrepreneurs like me and you, we don't like holding people accountable anyway. We are terrible managers. We barely can just fend for ourselves, and we're lucky that everything else is surviving. Have you developed any other systems or processes or anything that's been able to help you cope with life and deal with life a little bit better, so you don't have to go back to the bottle? And so, how do you, whenever you have those inklings, right, or those urges, what do you do in those situations?
Yeah. So, listen to music a lot. Let's see. A lot of times, I go for runs and jogs, and I work out and everything. I really don't get those urges like that anymore. I don't get the cravings are gone. I'm not saying that the cravings aren't there. I hate saying that now,
but you're also keeping busy though, nonstop.
That's
right?
part of it too. I can't. Idle hands kill.
You can't slow down, right? Because if you slow down, there's the mind starts wandering.
Well,
right?
and that's again where I medicinize. It's because I want to keep going, and it's hard for me to slow down. But as far as cravings and stuff, I was bartending. We had a party the other night, and I bartended for it and stuff. I mean, it's just.
Wow!
Yeah, I find it kind of.
Wow, you're right up to the line, bro.
I got a full bar in my office, and I'm usually the only one there. It's just it doesn't really faze me anymore, just because it looks to me. To me, it's just, man, I love it to give it to people because it's a value proposition. Here you go. But to me, it hurts me. It slows me down, and it does nothing but handicap me. That's all it does.
So this is interesting. So obviously you have your own issues with alcohol. You obviously know that most of the world has their own issues with alcohol, right? I mean, it's no secret. Do you think that there's anything good that comes from alcohol? Deep down inside.
I've said this before, though. Some of the best moments in my life have happened while drunk. Some of the best moments in my entire life would have never happened unless I was been drinking alcohol. At the same time, on the other end of that, some of the worst moments in my entire life have happened here. So I don't know where to say or how to judge or how to even answer that. Probably not. It's alcohol is probably definitely. I don't know any way it's going to help anybody except for the money.
So when you give it away or when you use it to throw a party or anything like that, do you ever feel guilty, or do you ever feel wow, what if somebody in the crowd is struggling like my dad or I used to struggle with, and I'm now help perpetuating that? How do you feel about that when I say
the real fact is, if somebody's there and wants to drink, they probably aren't ready to quit anyways. And everybody knows that I'm an alcoholic and that I'm available to talk with. I'm open. If anybody ever wants to do that, I'll talk with whoever and sit down. I love that crap. I love I love the psychology of it. We went through this whole thing learning about your brains up and downs and how this whole thing. And I love how the brain is just so warped up in this. And it's I can tell why somebody's feeling some way. Not that I know everything, but I can tell somebody's feeling that way. And it's because, or those shakes, in the morning, you're getting those shakes. And it's because, fuck, I was what the fuck? So I learned all about that. It's because alcohol is such a depressant. You're drinking so much depressant. The next morning, you're the other side of the depressant, the stimulant's trying to fight back. And your body can't hold it because it's trying to come back. So anyways, I really kind of enjoy the science of learning about how the brain function with alcoholism and the time it takes and years it takes. But one thing if people don't want to quit, it's tough. There's a lot of people that'll drag. It's like the drowning person. Sometimes they'll try and drag you down with them, where you got to help the ones that are coming to you,
What was it like I'm assuming you're a friendly guy, man. You probably had a lot of friends, a lot of bar buddies, and a lot of partying days and stuff like that. And when you made that decision to say, hey, I can't do this anymore, for my wife, for my kids, for myself, What was that like, with the whole friend situation and
Yeah, I just, I leaned on my family quite a bit, and I'd always kind of been a loner anyway, so it kind of worked back to that. It was a big part of my identity, And some people I didn't even tell people are from different states, I didn't even tell I hadn't drank for like a couple of years because I was almost embarrassed to say it. But now it's almost like I was thinking the other day, it's like it's almost the honor for me to say that I'm an alcoholic because I know what that means and I know how much it takes to overcome something that's so crippling in your life like that. And it's almost like a badge for me. It's like
well, it's very inspiring. I mean, the things that I watch you do on Facebook, and I know you from, because I probably connected with lots of other real estate agents and things like that. Talk to us a little bit about the journey, about getting into real estate. When did you get into real estate? When did you decide, like, this is a way I can serve people and this is a passion to be able to help people?
Yeah, so I did collections out in Seattle, a third-party collection agency for about 10 years, and I'd called so many people, and I was always nice on the phone, and like, you're almost more of a salesman than a collector, right? And so Heidi, we were having our second child, and Heidi wanted more time at home. We were looking at Dallas area where my family's from. We ended up in Butler. So we moved out here, and we said, when we move, we're going to be making a good chunk of money on our house. And we move, I'm just going to go into real estate. I'm just going to full-time real estate. So I came here not knowing anybody. Started licensing down there in Cranberry.
How long ago?
A little over 7 years ago now. 2015, I think is when it was. And
wow.
Walked right into Howard Hanna after that. I didn't even shop or nothing. It was just right up the street. It's like, hey, where do I sign? So I was at Howard Hanna a couple of years, and then...
And didn't know a single person when you moved here?
No, just Heidi, yeah.
And you just picked... But, like, Heidi was from here? Or
yeah,
not?
So her dad has a place up in Shakora. Her aunt lives in Katanning, and she graduated...
So she had some roots.
She graduated Slippery Rock. A lot of the people around here...
Oh, okay.
She's from, like, New Wilmington.
Right. So you moved back to the wife's neighborhood. Like, you didn't know anybody.
No.
Other than some family members.
Yeah, exactly.
You have a similar story. So I moved here in 2010, didn't know a single person except for my uncle and his family. So how did you then, become a real estate? I mean, it's easy to become a real estate agent, pass the test right now. You can call it an agent, but it's also then harder to, you got to get a network built. You got to get people that want to do business with you. You don't have any roots, any time. So how did you get your first client? That's what I want to know.
Yeah, right. So Butler is, steel mill, and it was the good old boys when I started here. It's still kind of somewhat, it's starting to change a little bit, but it was really good old boys town. And so how do I start here? Everybody here just asks their neighbor who they use, and that's basically what they do. And with Howard Hanna, I think the first client I got, I think it was off like a referral or something. It was a referral, the first one I got. Started taking referrals. I got a couple off of floor time because Howard Hanna makes you sit on floor time. Just a couple little random things here and there. And I remember I was paying in my first split. What do I say? It wasn't very good. So basically after about a year, I had to of just kind of limping along in these little referrals and tiny deals. Didn't really know what I was doing. I ended up going to get a job because I was like, we're just blowing through our savings here, And so I went down 100 truck sales because I'd done collections and worked in their accounts receivables department down 100 trucks. And I kept doing real estate. I said, that's still very important to me. And I started pulling out like $300,000 clients out of there, the finance managers and everything. Because the more I got to know people, it's about talking to people. When you talk to somebody at the coffee pot every day, eventually they're like, you do real estate? Huh? Well, yeah. So I started doing really well out of there. I moved to Berkshire. And then that's kind of how I started there.
Why make a move? I don't understand why all these agents switch all these brokers. Like I said, to me, they all look the same. So why switch?
Yeah. So money. It was a little bit of money to Berkshire. Plus, I didn't really have. It seemed like the cooler office over at Berkshire too. There were some people over there that
just a cooler vibe, right? Trendy, hip and cool.
And they drank more and everything. There was a big party or office.
Oh, there you go.
Bars and shit. So I was like, I'm gonna go to that.
So it was like Cheers.
Yeah.
It was like going to the bars at Cheers, right? Like everybody knows your name.
Exactly right. So yeah, and so that office, and then I found out it wasn't really like that. You're kind of still on an island if you're not on the team or in there.
They tricked you.
Yeah. I mean, You really?
They wooed you. You told your wife it's a little bit better money. You were going for the party, right? You were trying to make it all happen. Then they left you on an island, and you're like, oh crap! Now I got to do it.
And all I
again.
got out of that was a hangover. Yeah, that's about it. And then about a year into that, like I said, I was getting sober because I fucked up again. Like I said, and I got in trouble again, and it was basically me. Just I bought a house, and I was starting to remodel a house, and I was drinking at this house all the time. It was just my life was really starting to snowball chaotically, and I think I was frustrated with my job and just what was going on, and I was to the point where I needed to rebuild myself. I found the EXP on there, and I did that because it allowed me more growth. Like I was saying earlier, I don't like being micromanaged. I don't like being people checking in. Hey, did you sell anything this week? What are you doing this week? Like, I don't like that. And it gives me opportunity for just creating my own type organism, and the money's better, and I actually get, I feel like I get rewarded more so for my efforts, and that's important to me as my story is. I want to be rewarded.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of good things about EXP. One of my best friends, Joe Rosen, is a real estate agent, came out of the military, went to Port St. Lucie, Florida. And he's been killing it. And he said EXP is basically like, yeah, you have to put the EXP badge on there, but man, you're your own thing, man. You can do what you want, when you want to do it, how you want to do it. You can build teams. You can put your own training in. Like, it is fascinating. Yeah, and the splits are good.
Splits are great. I've been at 100% for a while, and then you get revenue. Anyway, so I could go in. I'm not trying to do an EXP.
Yeah,
EXP
no, I hear you.
But
and he was so excited about. I actually started buying stock in EXP, but right before COVID, I was buying, and I watched that thing go up, and I watched it crash all the way back down.
I sold out, thank God, right when it was up, and I got a down payment on my building. So we have an EXP open brokerage office, and it's not its own brokerage, it's just a closing center is what they call it. And so we basically purchased that through the swing on the stock, so that was cool. But I like the fact that I can help others in EXP grow and nurture, and I can help them, and by helping them, it's actually helping me. So it's great. It's almost like
it's like a win-win, right? It keeps your mind busy, right? Keeps you busy. Instead of hitting the bottle, you just keep calling your brother agents up and sister agents up and just try to help them, right? And it's like your new form of fun.
Right. I don't even bug anymore. Late this last year, everybody was giving us crap because saying, nobody EXP produces a lot of money up here. It's Western PA. It's a slow movement. Everybody here is about 5 years behind, I feel like the rest of the people. So we lived in Seattle before we moved here, and it was kind of a culture shock. But I love it now, the small town feel. And they asked what the difference in Seattle and Butler is. And here I can really make a difference. I can feel that impact. Seattle.
It's still cloudy and dark and rains all the time.
Yeah, there's more rainfall here, I think, than there. So I think it rains here more than there.
Oh, trust me, I'm in the roofing business. I know all about the bad weather here in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, man. Which is why I think it keeps a lot of the other contractors out from coming here and setting up these big national chains, because it is not the most ideal place to do business when you're a roofing contractor.
Right.
So, Ink, we got a few minutes left. I want you to give some words of wisdom to people that are either struggling, they're dealing with alcohol, they're trying to figure out if they're an employee or an entrepreneur. How do you find your purpose and your passion? What would you tell somebody?
Yeah. I find helping others really finds the source has really helped me find what I need. And you wouldn't think it, but just kind of releasing and letting your guard down and just trying to live for today. I don't know. That was a big thing, is living for today. I started doing the TikToks, and it was just
well, you're hilarious on TikTok. You guys got to follow this guy on TikTok. What's your TikTok name?
I think it's just Sadler Priest Realtor. But yeah, so I started doing that, but it was just F it. And I just threw it out there, and I started doing that every day and staying consistent. So it's just we're only living today. What are you scared of? It's just today. F it. That's why I take this big chance on EXP or whatever it is, because I have plenty of time to fix that problem, but I do not want any more regrets in my life. I have a lot of regrets, and I'm past the regret stage. I can fix my problems, as I've proven to myself. I can work myself out, and I can fix my problems, but I'm tired of regretting things. So.
Yeah, that's good, man. When you sent your TikTok, I was like, oh yeah, you started doing those, and I started to fall even more in love with you, because I was like, well, this guy's funny too, right? And I feel like people that have a dark side always are a lot funnier, just so you know. I don't know if that's a thing. So almost every funny person I see, it's kind of like that. it's like that Robin Williams thing, you
Right.
know? Like, it's like he was Chris Farley, right? Like some of the most funniest people of all time, man, they have a really, really dark side.
Yeah.
And so anytime I see someone funny now, I'm thinking like, oh boy, like that's great, but that comes from something, right? Like that comes from something bad probably, which is what they use for, I don't know. Like, I feel like that's what's beautiful about life, right? You can take bad things and then turn them into good. And, you know, as long as you're not masking them too much to, like, you know, cover up those things, because I think that talking about your issues are important.
Well, Robin Williams was trying to help. He was trying to put his best foot forward. He was trying to help those around him. And I think that's what's important for a lot of people that are maybe in pain is, you know, don't isolate and do trying to help. You know, trying to help. It'll make you feel better helping others. So.
Well, that's awesome. There's one thing that I do at the end of every show is I ask 5 rapid-fire questions. Imagine that I have to put you on an island completely by yourself. There's no other people on the planet anymore. And you have to take one book with you. What book are you going to take with you?
It's tough, man. Hatchet. It's a book called Hatchet.
Hatchet. That book sounds familiar. What kind of book is that?
It's a kid's survival. It was when I was young.
Yeah. I feel like I might have read. I think I might have read that when I was a kid in the library.
Yeah, it's like an Island of the Blue Dolphins type thing.
Hatchet. Yeah, no, that's cool. I like that. Let's see. What movie are you going to take with you?
Fight Club.
Fight Club. All right. Getting a little taste of Sadler right now. What restaurant are you going to put on that island?
Ooh. Just a little Mexican food restaurant over in Seattle, of all places. I forgot the name of it. Anyways, it's a Mexican.
Starts with a P?
Yeah, something like that. It's over in Seattle somewhere. I didn't know it. It was so
all
good.
right. That's no good. That's no good for the listeners and viewers.
I
if they're
know.
trying to go check it out, right? Like, I'm trying to create this, like, you know, Guy Fieri,
Well,
like, you know, all my podcast guest restaurant picks, and then, like, I'm just going to put a blog together of them all, and then, like, I don't know. You got to give me something, bro. How about give me your favorite Mexican in Pittsburgh or Cranberry or Butler?
Let's do the one in Butler. It's Reyes Tecas.
Reyes Tecas. All right, cool. I love it.
I'm a big mole fan. You know what mole is? Mole sauce?
No.
It's, if you Google it, it has like some of them have 35 ingredients in it, and it's like this sauce, and there's hundreds of different ways to make it. And so if it's on the menu, it's mole sauce. I get it everywhere I go. It's so good.
I want to spend a day with you, man. I want to come up there and just live in your world and just go around with you for a day. Maybe even bring the camera guy with us, you know, maybe cut some stuff up, and you can take me.
Let's do it, man. I'm a foodie, man. I like eating, so.
Yeah, me too. All right. Next question is, you're allowed to go anywhere you want in the whole entire world for a week. Where do you want to go?
God, it's tough, man. Was it Vancouver up there, BC?
Vancouver, so not too far from where you spent a lot of time as a kid, right? All right, last question. This is probably the toughest. You can spend 24 hours with one person. Could be somebody from the past, somebody from the present. Could be a celebrity. Could be somebody famous. Could be somebody just you know. And you can pick their brain for 24 hours. Who do you want to do that with?
That's tough, man. You know what's funny? Did you see that Stutz movie on Netflix?
No.
You haven't seen that? You got to watch that, man. It's with Jonah Hill.
What's it called?
Stutz, S-T-U. Jonah Hill is sitting with his therapist, and his therapist is Dr. Stutz or whatever. It's really good.
Okay.
And I was just thinking of that guy because he seems to get the shit out of your head you need to figure out your life.
All right, Dr. Stutz.
Yeah.
You heard it here first on the Big Fish Cares podcast. That's definitely the first I've ever heard of something like that. That's interesting. It's a fictional doctor.
He's real.
He's real. It's based on a true story.
Yeah, he sits there with his therapist. It's good. And the tools his therapist is so like out of his. He talks about depression and how to cure depression. He has a triangle. Everything's to a triangle. The bottom one and easiest one to do is something else. He's like, you got to exercise, not to be healthy. It's for your happiness. Exercise for happiness, and eat better for your happiness. And the second one is relationships, and then the third one is yourself, and it's how to treat depression without medication. It was like this whole thing. It was really cool. But he has a ton of really cool tools, I think, that it's just a inner enlightenment. I feel is like the overall treasure, inner enlightenment.
I love it. I feel like we could do a whole other podcast on that.
Yeah, man.
And love to chat with you more about it. How do people get a hold of you if they want to follow you, or if they want, more information on, maybe buying a house or something from you?
Yeah, just priestteam.com is our real estate site. But if you just put in Sadler, Sadler Priest into Facebook or Google, I think if you put it into Google, I'm like, there's not many Sadlers out there, so I got like the share name going on, right?
Especially with the last name Priest, right? I mean, I feel like that's a unique name too, right? You'll be walking around with like the old little collar things from the Catholic Church.
Yeah, well, I used to use that name a little more, but.
All right, man. Well, listen, I really appreciate it, man. I know that's tough sometimes to kind of share your story, but I think that's going to help a lot of people. I really appreciate you being vulnerable today.
Makes you powerful, man. Makes you powerful.
Oh, yeah. No, it does. It so does, and I hope other people are willing to share their stories. And if you guys have questions about anything we talked about, post it in the comments, like, subscribe, follow for more information. If you need me to ask Sadler something or get in touch with him, I can definitely connect you guys. And we'll see you guys next Friday on another edition of the Big Fish Cares podcast.
Thank you for listening to the Big Fish Cares podcast.